Hi, what's up everybody? This is Carlton Flowers here, and I am introducing the newest of my YouTube channels under the umbrella of CZTV, Carlton's own television, and this one is officially the FSN, stands for Family Sports Network. Also Flowers Sports Network, because there is another Flowers, Mr. Scott Flowers, who will be working for the channel and reporting news for the NFL, primarily the Chiefs, but we're going to be talking about sports across the board and the NFL as a whole. So today's video, we're going to be discussing the Kansas City Chiefs receivers situation. So there's been a lot of talk lately about all of the drops and all of the turmoil with the Kansas City Chiefs and the frustration of Patrick Mahomes. And I want to discuss each receiver and give you some of my opinion, because I can't hold it any longer. I've got to share my opinion and tell you what I think the truth of the situation is and why the Chiefs have hung tight with the current receivers core and what I think is going to be happening in the future. So first of all, we start with the lineup. We're going to go from receiver 1 on down, and I'm going to share with you my opinions about what's going on. Number 1 receiver, as he has emerged in this 2023 season, is Rashee Rice. So Rashee Rice is breaking records. It looks like he's going to be the top rookie receiver ever in the history of the Chiefs franchise, and he is learning. Now, he has had problems with drops, maybe not as bad as some of the other Chiefs receivers, but when he was in college, he did have a drop problem, and that caused him a little bit of traction with where he was drafted. But Rashee Rice has an amazing upside, and he has a full basket of talents that he's bringing to the Chiefs, and I think that we're going to see him emerge into the next season as wide receiver 1, which brings me to number 2, the controversial wide receiver number 2, which is none other than Kadarius Toney. So here recently we've got all of Chiefs Kingdom that is fussing and hollering about getting rid of Kadarius Toney because of his problems with drops. We had the flashback drop from the first game of the season when he bumbled a pass and gave a pick six to the Lions. And this repeated again in the game that we just saw with the New England Patriots. But fortunately, the Chiefs were taking care of the entire game, and it did not come down to that drop and interception breaking the game and bringing them another loss. So a lot of people think, get rid of Kadarius Toney. He's a problem. There's a reason why the Giants cut him, and people seem to want to move on. But that's not going to happen. Number 1, you heard what the head coach said. Andy Reid said that this guy is young, and we're just going to have to work on it. And he does not foresee a problem. He said that with a receiver who is this young in the league, this is not a problem that cannot be fixed, and he's going to move forward with him. And I think he is right. Here's why. Kadarius Toney has moves, he has capabilities, he has talents that can still be worked on and improved. And this guy is like the receiver version of Barry Sanders. Go back and look at all the highlights. Look at what he's done in games thus far. And tell me if you've seen another Chiefs receiver or even a running back that has the juke ability, the quickness, the ability to turn and cut of what we see with Kadarius Toney. So yeah, he drops the ball. He's got a problem with drops. But as Andy Reid said, he's young. There's time to work on that. We have the rest of the season where he can still improve, and if not, we got the offseason. If they fix the problem with his drops, I think we have a real threat in Kadarius Toney to be a solid receiver number 2 next to Rashee Rice. And I think that they can use him in multiple ways, not just, say, coming across the middle or going out deep, but using him on jet sweeps. He's got the moves, he's got the jukes, and I think we're going to see a whole lot more of that going into the future. Fix the drop problem, and I think you have the potential for Kadarius Toney to make a huge splash in the NFL and turn out to be an asset to the Kansas City Chiefs. So the bottom line is Kadarius Toney is not going anywhere. There's just too much upside to get frustrated over these drops right now to cut him and move on when we see what his potential could be. Moving right along, the next receiver who is dropping down the list, getting less snaps than he ever has, and that would be MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who tends to catch the ball with his body. He's a body catcher. He's not a hands catcher. So they brought him into the Chiefs organization last year. He didn't really have a big splash in that first season, and I thought, well, maybe his second season is going to be the breakout season. It has not. He continues to have problems catching the ball. He has been in the league for a while. He had problems catching the ball in Green Bay, and that continues right now. Maybe that's not something that is fixable. I thought that when they brought in MVS, we would have the deep threat that would replace what we had with the Cheetah, but that is not turning out to be the case. I also thought that with his height plus speed, maybe he would be the guy who you would go to on a deep pass and let him go for the jump ball and hit him at the high point, and he could be a game breaker. But for whatever reason, we don't see that. We also don't see Patrick Mahomes trusting him with the ball. And that is why we see his amount of snaps that he has taken on the field dropping since the beginning of the season because of Rashee Rice outperforming and outproducing him, and I see him going further down the receiver list. Now, he signed to this $33 million contract, $11 million a year against the salary cap for someone who is taking less snaps. Now, I don't know what they could do next year, if they would have to take a hit in order to cut him and move on, or maybe he would be trade bait. But who's looking to trade for MVS after what he has shown in the last two seasons with Kansas City? I don't know. Maybe he can fix those problems. Maybe he can re-emerge. But I don't really see the Chiefs organization going forward with MVS. And I'm thinking maybe it's the time that they cut and move on and let some of these other up-and-coming receivers get more of those snaps. Now, let's move on to number 4, and that would be Watson. Okay, so Watson has had drops, but he's got speed, and he has proven himself. He has had some critical catches in game situations, and he has also had some critical drops in situations. And so I think that it's a 50-50 right now. But I don't see the Chiefs moving on from him because you got to have depth. You got to have receiver depth. So if something happens to number 1 and number 2, you need somebody that can step in and produce. And he has shown the ability to produce in critical situations, even though some of those critical situations we've seen him drop the ball, coming across the middle and looking at the linebackers that are coming straight at him, and he turns his head, looks at the linebackers, and does not catch the ball because he's anticipating getting whacked going across the middle. But maybe that's something that can be fixed. And plus, he does have that deep threat ability because he does have a good speed. All right, the next on the list is Sky Moore, who is dropping quick. He is injured, and Sky Moore has never had his breakout season since being signed with the Chiefs. Now, a lot of people say that the Chiefs don't use him right. They say that he should be put in the slot position and coming out of the backfield, give him more jet sweeps and use him like he was used when he was in college. But when you combine the fact that it's just not in the game plan for the Chiefs, plus the fact that he drops the ball a lot, I don't see them moving forward with Sky Moore, especially considering that he's just been put on injured reserve. So that brings us to the next receiver on the roster, which is the troubled Justin Ross. Now, Justin Ross is an interesting character, and he's had his problems this year. He started out, he had, 3 catches for 24 yards, somewhere around there. And then he had the little problem with his significant other and got suspended by the NFL. But he is back again on the active roster. Now, as you know, when Justin Ross came into the league, he was drafted. He was not drafted. The Chiefs picked him up in a steal of a deal after his injury to his back. And then he injured his ankle. I think it was his foot, I believe. And the Chiefs have stuck with him. They have invested a lot of time with Justin Ross. And we have yet to see if he can produce in game time situations or be a breakout receiver. And for as much as time that the Chiefs have invested into Justin Ross, I don't think they're ready to cut him yet because, again, we've got to have depth in the receiver position. And so with Sky Moore going down, I think we might get a glimpse at what his capabilities could be, and maybe he can get his head together and not have any off-field problems. And finally, after all these years of rehab and surgeries and sticking with the game plan, I think that maybe he can have his breakout moment. Now, the next receiver who really should be above Justin Ross, which he is Richie James. Now, in the last game against the Patriots, Richie James only had, 2 receptions? He wasn't given a lot of snaps, but he caught those 2 receptions. I think he had somewhere around 25 yards. And Andy Reid even said that we've got to get Richie James more snaps. Now, Richie James is valuable for 2 different reasons. He is a good receiver, he does have good speed, and he is a dependable punt returner and kick returner. He had that one muffed punt. I can't remember which game that was where he dropped that punt, fumbled the ball away, but that was his only big mistake that he's made this year. And otherwise, he's been fairly dependable when he is on the field. Now, he was great when he was with the San Francisco 49ers, and we know what his capabilities are. It's not just all potential. He has shown what he can do on the field. So for that reason, I think the Chiefs are going to be sticking with Richie James moving forward. All right, that brings us to the next retread receiver, and that would be Mecole Hardman. Now, years ago, in the early parts of his career, Mecole Hardman was depended on and had a lot of great games. He was used a lot on jet sweeps and also as a deep threat. But then the Chiefs moved on. He went to the Jets and didn't get any jet sweeps with the Jets, much less passes. I think he caught 2 passes for a total of 6 yards with the Jets. And then after we were running a little bit low on receivers after injuries early in the season, the Chiefs decided to bring him back. Now, he had a couple critical mistakes. There was the fumble on a punt, a couple other passes, critical passes that he had dropped, and then the injury. But for the reason that I said before, we've got to have depth. I don't think that the Chiefs are ready to move on from Mecole Hardman because he's probably going to come back, and we're going to see him in the next few games, hopefully in the next game coming up against the Raiders. And moving into the playoffs, I definitely think they're going to have to depend on having Mecole Hardman in the lineup. Now, Mecole has the speed. He is one of the few that has the speed close enough to Tyreek Hill where maybe we have another deep threat receiver. So, could we see Mecole Hardman charging up the line in the rotation of the receivers? I think that maybe if you put Mecole Hardman in the 3 position, if you've got Rashee Rice as number 1, stick with Kadarius Toney and let him prove himself at number 2 and move Mecole Hardman up in number 3 or at least number 4 and see where he's at. See how he does. See if they can tap into that speed because we have lost the deep threat capability of the Chiefs. We have not seen that many deep passes this year. In fact, this is the least amount of deep threat passes that we had with the Chiefs since Patrick Mahomes has become a starter. So let's see. It's a juggling act. I don't know what you think, but post in the comments below. Do you think Mecole Hardman will get more snaps than Richie James? Or Justin Watson? Do you think he'll compete with Justin Watson? Can he be depended on? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Moving on to the next receiver, who is not a receiver. In fact, the next three are not really receivers, but it is Travis Kelce. Some say that, okay, this guy is listed as a tight end, but he's really a receiver. I think that, yes, he is a tight end. I also think that he does do good on his blocking, and if anything, he pulls D-backs away. He attracts a lot of attention, which opens up opportunities for the other receivers, and for the most part, he is very dependable when Patrick Mahomes is scrambling, and he can improvise and go off the script and make himself available, open, just kind of hanging out in the middle and moving to those dead spots and catching the ball when Mahomes is scrambling. Now, we have seen a little bit of a decrease in performance, and Travis Kelce has been injured a few times this season, and right now it just kind of seems like his head is not in the game. Maybe it's the love bug, maybe he's getting old, and maybe all those hits in the middle are starting to stack up on him. But we'll have to wait and see. He could be at the end of his career or nearing the end of his career. But if anything, I think that they're going to keep on to him, keep with Travis Kelce, and maybe if they put the other tight ends in the rotation a little bit more and give him relief, maybe they can extend that time that Travis Kelce can hang on to this career and give another couple of years at least. Time will tell, and we'll find out. And hopefully he gets his head back in the game and returns to his previous form and makes a difference in the playoffs. I hope he doesn't get banged up in these next few games because they are going to have to depend on him when it comes to playoff time, because Travis has this connection with Patrick Mahomes. The quarterback to tight end connection is like none other in the NFL. In fact, in the history of the NFL. Okay, so that brings us to the second of the three non-receivers who is really a good receiver, and that is McKinnon. McKinnon can come out of that backfield, and he is very dependable when it comes to short passes, mid-range passes, and Patrick Mahomes trusts him. He trusts McKinnon to catch that ball, and he has been able to produce. Now, he's also getting up in years. He's in his early 30s, which is old and dog years in terms of the NFL, but I think that it would be wise if they stick with him moving forward from this point. So I'm thinking they're going to re-sign McKinnon and stick with the game plan. And that takes us to non-receiver number 3, last but not least on the list, and that is CEH. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Everyone has practically written him off, and in this game against the Patriots, we saw that he is dependable, that he can run the ball. In fact, he ran well against Buffalo. He did good in the previous few games, subbing for our injured number 1 running back, and that would be Isaiah Pacheco. But CEH can catch the ball. We saw CEH jump up and high point a ball like a 6'4" receiver, even though he's every bit of 5 foot and a few inches. And he caught that ball. He's got dependable hands. So while a lot of people think that the Chiefs are not going to move forward with CEH because this is his contract year, I think that they're going to stick with him. From what we saw in that last game, I think he could be an invaluable option coming out of the backfield and being depended on to be a receiver. That's right, a receiver. All right, let me know what you think and give me your opinion about Kadarius Toney, about what the lineup should be, and let me know if you think that the Chiefs should stick with McKinnon and stick with CEH moving forward into the next season. And look for a lot more sports talk coming forward, coming your way from the FSN, the Family Sports Network. And we're going to be bringing on Scott Flowers and some other members in the family who live up north that are big Detroit Lions fans. Now, I'll tell you, the Detroit Lions. That's my second favorite team because I grew up going to Detroit games as my mother is from Detroit, and I have a whole host of family that lives in the city of Detroit, and I got to see Barry Sanders. As a matter of fact, at Mizzou, when I was in college, I got to see Barry with Oklahoma State run up 300 yards on my Missouri Tigers. And then I got the great pleasure of being able to see him play on at least 10 different games in Detroit, Thanksgiving Day games, because we traveled to Detroit every year with the family. So we're going to have some of my family members from Detroit come in to join the chat. And then we are also going to have some family members that'll join the chat to discuss another NFL player who is in the family that plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. I won't tell you who it is. You're going to have to hang with me to see who that is. But we do have a family member who is a starter on the defensive side of the ball for the Cincinnati Bengals, who just happen to be heating up this season and could give the AFC some problems. So that's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching. Look for some great things to come. And I tell you what, I'm very excited about this and about chatting sports with you. Well, we'll see you next time. This is Carlton, and I'm gone.